Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, joined by James and Callum. How you going, guys?
Good.
Good.
How are you?
Good. So it's starting to get cold.
Yep.
So it's movie season, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always movie season
Well,
for us.
I mean, yeah, it's always movie season.
But for normal people who go out and socialize, it's now movie season because it's too cold to go out.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about, like we did last week.
Yeah, but there's not much out at the
But there's not much out, so you
Yeah.
have to go digging for interesting
and
things.
also because of just, our show's been going so long and we had COVID and we didn't do so many episodes and it was getting stale and then we started again and it's like, let's do something different. We'll just have a general, like last week,
Well, we always talk about how
There's plenty to talk about.
we always talk about how our best conversations
Yes.
and our most probably entertaining and the
best-
conversations that
yeah.
would do the work
All
well
our
on
best-
podcasts and radio
Yeah.
are just conversations we have off air.
Yeah, all our best jokes and all our best conversations happen before and after the show, before we turn on the mics or after we turn them off. And it's always really frustrating. And so last week we tried to capture that kind of free-flowing, easy breezy conversation. What have you been watching? What have you been playing? What have you been reading? And just kind of talk crap about it. So
And I think for the most part it worked.
yeah, so we'll try to do that, on off weeks when there's not a big movie that we want to, focus on.
And there's always news and discussions going on in our sphere anyway, so...
Yeah, we always talk about it, like we always say, we always talk about it even if the show didn't exist. So, we're going to try to replicate that conversation more naturally, whereas for the last couple years, most episodes is just me rambling on like I am now. And it gets very stuffy and stale.
Yeah.
So yeah, tonight was just anything goes. And Callum's going to start.
Yeah, so I finished watching War Games with Matthew Broderick from 1983.
Nice.
And I don't think I'd ever seen that one before.
I like how I'm like vicariously reliving these movies through Callum because I've seen all these 80s classics over and over and over and over again since I was little. And Callum's like, "Hey, you know what I watched?" And then I'll be like, "Oh my god, that's such a good movie." What'd you think? It's awesome, right?
Yeah, I loved it. I love how lo-fi it is.
Yeah.
So I mean, to be fair, it's the early 80s. I mean, it can't get that crazy, but
But it's like the stakes are high, but the kind of adventure or action is
I read one review that I thought was really insightful. It said it's a good technological thriller, but it's also a unpatronizing teen drama.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And I was like, that's a really good way to look at it because there is a sense of drama between Daniel. What's
I don't remember.
I can't remember his name now.
Matthew Broderick's
How shocking is that?
Yeah.
His name and the female lead.
Ali Sheedy.
Yeah, as they kind of try and are they friends? Are they not? Like, what's the changing nature of their relationship because they're both teenagers.
Yeah.
And he's
Well,
way
they
out.
weren't there,
He's
yeah.
way out of her league. Way under her league, I should say.
Matthew Broderick, so is he in his 30s playing a teenager? Or
No,
it
he
not
was
appropriate?
83, so he might have been 20s. But
this is pre Ferris Bueller.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
He
he's
would've
like
been
a
early 20s.
because he's like a nerdy guy. He's like a failure. He gets low grades at school, but he's actually really smart. He just doesn't apply himself.
Yeah.
And she's like a cooler girl, and for some reason
Yeah.
she's interested in him. Like, I think this was written by a male.
Male wish fulfillment.
Is it one or both of them are also into arcade games? Is that a
Matthew
Yeah,
Broderick's
but,
into
yeah.
arcade games. I think she likes Matthew Broderick for, like I said, for
Yeah.
like in real life this wouldn't
because the
fly.
screenwriter wanted?
Yeah. And so for some reason she goes to his house and that's like a normal thing, and she like is interested in his nerdy stuff,
Yeah.
even though she doesn't really care. Like, there's that sense of she's just there for him. It's just like, oh, what's on your computer today, Matthew Broderick?
Yeah.
And anyway, what I love about it is it captures that period of time which you don't really see much of anymore, and not even in that period of time, but that old freaking with PH
Yeah.
Yeah,
culture.
Yeah.
the good old
Yeah.
Captain Crunch
Yeah,
whistles.
Yeah.
so before the internet as we know it now, you would have a modem which would essentially dial a phone number, and if that phone number had like an internet, so to speak, like a website or a network
It's always connected
connected to it,
Yeah.
you could talk to it.
Yeah.
And so he just when he wants to find a video game, right, and a video game that hasn't been released.
Yeah.
So he looks up the company in the phone book or whatever, and he calls the operator, gets the extension code for it, and then he has I guess it's like an illegal program on his computer,
Yeah.
which just keeps dialing numbers all day. So he
Yeah.
goes to school and he dials numbers to find which return an actual network.
Yeah.
And so he comes home from school and then he tries all those numbers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and that's how it kind of would have been back then.
It's really cool.
It's realistic,
Yeah.
which is why I like it so much. It's like a high tech
Yeah.
kind of drama, but it's also written in a realistic way. It's not like I'm gonna connect to the modem, then you get those like hacker style, you got the CGI
It's
hacker man mentality
Yeah,
thing. He accidentally happens to stumble upon the number of NORAD.
Yeah.
Which is the people
American
who track like
defense.
missiles and,
Yeah.
and defense systems and such. And so anyway, it's just that drama about he accidentally
Yeah.
engages
He thinks it's a video game.
Yeah,
Called, is it called War Games or is that?
it's called
War.
WAP. He connects to a computer called the Whopper,
Yeah.
which is a joke because it was originally supposed to be called Burger, and they're like, no, we'll call it the Whopper.
Yeah.
And essentially, he thinks it's the network he was trying to find because it
Yeah.
has like a list of games, and the game he plays is global thermonuclear war.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And so then it starts this
then-
simulation, but the people on NORAD think it's real, and
Yeah.
then the drama is getting it to stop.
And there's like an AI that thinks it's a real
Yeah,
nuclear.
but there's a whole bunch of really interesting things happening behind the scenes. Like some of the computers, there was a guy behind it, like
Yeah.
pressing buttons to change the display. But like this is 1983, right? And you go into the NORAD, they wouldn't let the crew and the
Oh, you're
directors.
talking about behind the scenes stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't let the crew and NORAD actually wouldn't let them in the building to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
So they had to use their imagination.
Yeah.
And what they came up with was so much better than the actual NORAD installation.
Yeah.
So what happened was, because this is in 83, like I said,
Yeah.
they have these giant monitors which look really cool and really high tech for 1983,
Yeah.
but it's actually projection.
Yeah. Reprojection.
Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
like, that's so cool because it looks so seamless.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's.
It's just
yeah.
like the little things like that. Like some of the tech looks a bit quaint now. Like
Yeah.
they'll press a button and it'll go yellow, and you're like,
But
yeah,
that's
just
part
roll
of
my
the,
eyes.
That's
Like,
part of the fun, though, is that old tactile kind of switches and buttons.
Yeah.
And the old DOS screens or whatever
Yeah.
that you call it with the big green text and stuff.
yeah, and I really liked it.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Matthew Broderick, he had that for a period of time before he started to look like a bit old.
Yeah.
He had that really leading man energy.
Yeah.
Or should I
he's
say
great.
leading boy? Because he had that really boyish look.
Yeah.
And he retains it to this day to an extent
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
he still looks pretty much the same.
Sometimes I'm like, it's a shame he didn't take a more Michael J. Foxy kind of route.
Yeah.
Like I think like a more adventurous kind of. I know he did Lady Hawk, but
Yeah.
like a more adventurous kind of sci-fi kind of thing.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But yeah,
No, it's a good movie, and the ending's really cool too,
yeah,
which we won't spoil. But yeah, it's that really, what do you call it, quintessential 80s. There was Last Starfighter, and there was War Games, and it was Tron. And it was like that kind of the computer game era. Video games were becoming a thing. That kind of cool, era of video games influencing movies and.
Yeah, there's also a scene where he actually like dodges a payphone like they used to do back in the day, which is like one of the coolest things ever.
Yeah.
He makes like 3 phone calls.
So, for context, back in the day, payphones used to use frequency to dial.
Yeah.
And you could get whistles, often in stereo boxes and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that just happen to have the same frequency, or you can sort of play with the frequency.
Yeah.
And if you dialed this frequency like into the handset, it would make a call.
Yeah.
Or it'll
So
send
you
to
could,
like
you could get like
the-
3 long distance calls by
Yeah.
whistling into the receiver.
and it
Yeah.
puts the signal through. Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't do it exactly because I suppose legal reasons.
Yeah, it would be the same
But,
thing if like you can't actually make a bomb with real recipe, with a real recipe in a movie,
Yeah.
because it's like
Yeah.
there's legal implications
Yeah.
there.
But like he like takes the thing, he takes the plate off of the
Receiver,
the receiver, and then he like twists something. I
Yeah.
was like, that's really
That's
cool.
all cool in that, yeah.
I love that kind of stuff. That low tech hacking.
Yeah. Even if in real life it doesn't make sense, I like in movies where they just unscrew something.
Yeah,
And it's
I
just
prefer.
like,
Kind of prefer that to like when you see hacking in movies and TV now.
Yeah.
it's like they'll put in like DOS, and then it'll be like
Yeah.
hack network.
it'll just be someone slamming on the keyboard.
Yeah, and then they'll
it'll
press
just
like
be
enter, and
yeah.
then it's like you see the data stream and
Yeah.
stuff. It reminds me of what was that movie?
Hackers?
The short film. No, the
Oh.
short film. It's an 80s.
Oh yeah, Hacker. Was it called Hacker Man?
No, but it's it's
The
got,
character was called.
yeah,
hacking.
and that's what always makes me laugh because
Yeah.
that's what Hollywood
It was
thinks
like a
hacking is.
parody. It was like a parody of hacking in movies.
I'm trying to think what the movie was called, but it's
It's like a YouTube thing, right?
yeah,
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
but that's what they think it is. This over the top, exaggerated
Yeah.
version of hacking.
I
but
mean, have you seen Hackers?
yeah, of course.
because that movie is like
Yeah,
so 90s.
That's the one where they get the fancy modem and they're like,
Yeah.
oh my god, and
There's
they
all-
connect it, and then you
yeah,
see the
there's all
VR thing.
Yeah, there's like stuff on there's like the computer graphics all over the screen.
That's the same type of thing. He'll just type in whatever and
yeah. That's
So-
why I really liked Mr. Robot because all the hacking was
Like,
super
pretty legit.
realistic, but they made it exciting.
yeah.
Like, whoever, there was someone in charge of making it all sure that it made sense.
Well, I remember I haven't watched a lot of Mr. Robot, but I know there's an episode where he can't get what he needs to get unless he's on site.
Yeah.
So he's like, he gets in there and connects his computer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's super realistic.
It's like such a good show.
And he's like waiting
they-
for a file transfer, and he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're coming.
And they take a lot of care into like getting all that stuff right. Like everything he's typing is like could be real.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's real code or
Which
pseudo
also,
code.
yeah, which I like when movies do that because it shows that you can do something realistically or semi-realistically without sacrificing the fun or the tension of because movies don't have to be real.
No.
Like
Yeah.
who cares if he's not doing real hacking? But when you take that kind of care into like crafting something, it like
well,
shows
when
on
it's
screen.
more grounded,
Yeah.
the stakes are almost kind of higher. Because if you're like hacking in a movie and all
Yeah.
you have to do is press the enter key,
Yeah.
it's like, well, it's so easy to do. Everyone must
And-
be able to do it.
And oftentimes, like real life is more interesting than what happens
Exactly.
in the movies. Like sometimes there'll be a movie based on a true story, and you watch the movie and go, "Wow!" And then you read the true story and you'll be like, "What? They didn't do half of because no one would believe what happened in real life."
One of the greatest things about. Did you ever watch the what's his name? The gentleman behind WikiLeaks. Julian
The Ninth
Assange like
Estate or whatever
biopic.
it's called.
the one
Fifth
with
Estate.
Benedict
No,
Cumberbatch.
no, the an older one
Oh,
that has
No.
him. It was like
it
made
a
for
doc-
TV. It was like a made for TV thing or something.
oh, okay.
But it has him, and this is like from what his interviews and stuff, because he was a
Yeah.
famous like a 90s hacker in quotation marks,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
from that generation. They would raid like the bins outside like the internet exchanges
That's cool.
and stuff like that, and get like the parts that they needed
Yeah.
and like old hardware that they could like rig up at
I
home.
wonder. I'm trying to think. Is there an Australian kind of war games esque kind of hacker movie? I'd really like to see that, like an 80s, 90s.
That'd be not that I'm aware of, but it'd be interesting.
yeah.
But yeah, there was like, so that's interesting. That kind of stuff, like bin diving for hardware.
Yeah, that's
like
cool.
that's a fascinating thing because
Yeah.
it goes from the software side of hacking to like we need certain
Yeah.
specially made components.
Yeah.
And I also love seeing things rigged up.
Yeah.
Like in it's a completely different movie, but one of the coolest things about Aronofsky's Pi is
Yeah.
that weird setup he has
Yeah.
in his room.
Yeah. I mean, people building stuff in movies, like especially in montage, is always fun.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Also, I guess it's like the equivalent of the arming up scene. When there's like a character
Yeah,
like
yeah.
strapping on the gun and the grenades and stuff.
When Rambo's getting his guns.
Yeah. Like
When John Wick's breaking the
Commando.
cement in his
Yeah,
basement.
stuff like that. Or Aliens when she's like taping the gun to the flamethrower. Like, it's that kind of...
Yeah. So yeah, War Games. Really great movie, grounded in a sense of realism, but it's also a high stakes, almost sci-fi thriller because
Yeah.
the AI robot can't exist. It's
Yeah.
that's the sci-fi-ness of it.
Yeah.
But it's grounded
Well,
in
We don't know what they're working on behind the scenes.
That's true.
Hey, man.
Quantum computers are a thing now.
Yeah.
Apparently. So I finished that up, and then I started watching one of the most notoriously bad movies ever made, allegedly. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe with Dolph.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm half an hour in,
Yeah.
but I'm really liking it.
I've never seen it for one reason. Because I love all those cheesy 80s movies, even the ones that aren't that good. I'll give them a go. But I remember reading that because they didn't have a big budget, it goes from the He-Man universe
To the modern day.
planet and then it's just like, and now he's in New York or whatever.
That's right.
I'm like, that's so cheap and boring.
Now, you know me, normally I hate that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you have to send a character somewhere, send them to the fictional world.
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah,
really
I
interesting.
love
The whole-
Mario Brothers movie.
Exactly. The Mario
Yeah.
Brothers movie is like the perfect
But-
example of this type of thing.
I mean, yeah. But like usually if you're making a movie based on something that's set on another planet or in another dimension or in a fantasy world, you should just stay in that world. If you don't have the budget for it, don't make that movie.
Yeah, pretty much. So I started watching that, and Dolph does an okay job with the accent. It's fine. But what I love about it is the fact that, in Star Wars, we talk about, like, the violence has a weight to it. So, like, when they shoot blasters, there's smoke, there's sparks. Same thing in He-Man.
Yeah.
They're, like, shooting these really great 80s, like, lasers.
Yeah.
And, like, they're like, or, guns, whatever, but shoot lasers. They're very clearly, like, props, but that's fine.
Yeah.
And they shoot, like, the lasers, and there's the smoke and the impact.
Yeah. It's back when they use squibs instead of just CGI or just not.
Yeah.
Again, like, they don't put the effort in
and
anymore.
Skeletor, we've all seen the cartoons. He has, like, the worst character names in history. He-Man, Sorceress, Master at Arms, Skeletor, because guess what? He has a skeleton face.
Yeah. What's the cat name?
I can't remember.
Anyway.
But anyway, I said to Nathan, Skeletor has to be up there with Doctor Doom for, like, the best cartoony kind of villains.
Yeah.
Because the Sorceress is like, please let me go. And he goes, no, I don't think I will.
Yeah.
And then he just moves on.
It's Frank Langella is Skeletor in the movie, I think. And it's like one of those notorious, like, campy...
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Hamming it up performances, yeah.
One
day I'll watch it. I'll get round to it.
I enjoy it also because there's lots of practical stuff. There's puppets.
Yeah.
And I like that kind of stuff. Like, it's just, there's no CG.
It just makes
there is, but it's like the 80s drawn on CG
like,
that I love.
Yeah, it's like we always talk about, like, even if the movie's bad, it's still fun to watch because got cool little
because it holds up
and bits and pieces.
It holds up. It doesn't look dated.
Yeah.
There's a scene. Well, yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
There's a scene where they make contact on Earth for the first time, and it's the puppet encounters a cow, and it's like talking to the cow. Then it's like stroking the cow's face. I'm just like, see, this is great. You can't do that with CG.
Yeah.
And the cow doesn't care. The cow's, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure the cow's not, happy to be there.
Oh, he's a movie star now, though.
Yeah, but I'm just like, it's kind of cool. I enjoyed it.
I should say.
I enjoyed the awkwardness of the scene.
Yeah.
And then I just got sad about Dark Crystal because I'm seeing the puppets. I was like,
oh, God, you had to bring it down.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure when because they've been threatening to make a new He-Man movie for decades, and Kevin Smith's supposed to be making that Netflix animated show, so I'm sure He-Man will come up again. I don't know.
Look, Kevin Smith. Whenever Kevin Smith's doing something animated, it's probably going to be good.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I'm using his basis as a comic writer.
Yeah, like, I'm sure it'll have good elements, but I find it hard to get excited about anything anymore because we've been burned so many times. Yeah, that's true. Especially when it comes to, like, fantasy.
Especially because it's a Netflix show as well. There's that added.
Yeah, Netflix animation are a bit.
They had a She-Ra show which I heard was good, but I never watched it. But that, because of rights issues, like, they're not set in the same universe technically. And it'll be assumedly a different animation style and different. Yeah, completely different.
It also the He-Man movie also stars Courtney Cox in a starring role, like an early starring role, which is interesting. I haven't got so as far as I'm assuming there'll be a romantic subplot between her and Dolph.
Yeah.
We'll see. I've never seen it, so it's all mystery to me.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming He-Man will save the day and Skeletor will be defeated.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's about all I've got for what I've been watching.
Yeah.
I've nearly up to date with Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is excellent so far.
Nice. There's only a couple episodes left, I think.
Yeah, Baron Zemo is probably my favorite at this point.
Yeah, well,
he hasn't seen the
I haven't seen the latest,
so we can't talk about that this week.
I won't spoil it, but I'll just say that it's come up on the show before that Civil War kind of became my favorite Marvel MCU movie, and Falcon and Winter Soldier deals heavily with those Zemo and the other things that happened during that. Also, something we'll talk about when the show ends, because we'll probably have a big review discussion of the whole season.
Well, it merits it.
Yeah, but we kept talking about how MCU really needs to deal with the 5-year gap, the blip.
Yeah,
and so far, Falcon and Winter Soldier has done a really good job with that.
Yeah,
and I think one of the reasons they're doing the shows is so they can deal with the blip.
Yeah,
and then
fill in the
when
blanks.
they get to the movies, they can just ignore it. And then it's like, movies, fun, action.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
And it gives the snap, the blip the 5 year
Yeah.
gap enough room to deal with it well.
Yeah,
It also
which
helps
is
them.
what I wanted.
The blip kind of also helps them pad in TV shows. It gives them more meat to use in
Yeah.
in their stew, so to speak.
Yeah, true.
So I think it'd be weird for them not to take advantage of all these
Oh, no,
surrounding context.
Yeah, and like I
left
said,
over from the films.
that'd be stupid not to
Yeah,
to just discuss it or whatever.
yeah. I think
Explore
that's all what
Yeah.
I've been seeing lately.
Who wants to go next?
All right. We might be back right after this. You are back on the Tuesday review, surprisingly.
you weren't sure about that.
Yeah,
You
we
were
weren't
like,
sure
we
about
might
that
be.
one.
You were like, we might be back.
We might not. You never know.
That's true.
We might get cancelled during our sponsorship break.
Yeah, everything's so unpredictable.
That's it. I guess I'll go next. I probably have the least amount to talk about this week. I finished watching The January Man.
Oh, okay.
With the Kevin
Did-
Kline movie,
which is-
which has
I
the
don't think you
stacked
mentioned
cut.
that on the show. You
Oh,
might need to
okay.
give it context.
So I started watching The January Man. Maybe I didn't talk about it because I hadn't finished it.
yeah,
With Kevin Kline, Harvey Keitel, and
big cast.
big cast, Susan Sarandon,
Mm.
and it was absolute garbage.
Yeah,
Which is
I
funny.
remember. Oh no! So Nathan mentioned it last week off air. He's like, I'm watching The January Man, and I'm like, not familiar. It was 1989, right?
Yeah,
and it had
something
this
like
huge
that.
cast.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it doesn't really ring a bell. And you were explaining to me it's like a crime, murder mystery.
Well,
And then then you told me it was terrible, and I'm like, well, that doesn't surprise. And then you told me why it was terrible, and I was like, well, that's why I haven't really heard of it.
Yeah, well, because our mum was like, "Oh,
It's
that's
a
a
great
really good
film,
movie.
yeah.
You should watch it." And I'm like, "All right, it's my list. I'm watching it." One, Kevin Kline, he does all right. The other actor in it, Snape, what's his face?
Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman, he's in it.
Nice.
He's Kevin Kline's his roommate,
Okay.
and he's a painter who doesn't pay rent, and for some reason that's okay. And
Yeah.
neither of them have jobs, but it's okay. And they
And have
just
this
have this
huge
really
apartment,
huge
yeah.
apartment, and it's okay.
Typical.
Nobody pays rent. It's fine. Whatever. Suspension of disbelief. Whatever.
Movies.
Whatever movie. Movie magic.
That's how it works.
Yeah,
That's
it.
the real
That's it.
fantasy.
That's the real fantasy. They have a rent-controlled apartment in New York.
That's
in
what that's what
1989.
people always joke about
Yeah.
Friends. It's like
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a rent-controlled apartment in 1989 where none of them have a job.
Yeah.
And it's just like, they can live there. Yeah, we live
Yeah.
really well.
It doesn't matter how many
Yeah.
explosions or guys flying
Yeah.
across the screen or
And-
spaceships.
And there's a serial killer going around New York City killing people, which is like, that's cool, right?
Yeah.
It's 1989. New York isn't quite like it is today. It's still
Yeah.
a little bit dirty, a little bit rough.
Yeah.
And there's a serial killer, and Kevin Kline is a retired or sort of, I guess, semi-disgraced, depends who, the opinion of the characters involved,
Yeah.
police detective.
Mm.
And they beg him back because he was the greatest detective. They
Yeah.
beg him back to come back and solve this case. And for at least a good halfway between the movie, you never actually see Kevin Kline do any of the police work. And then there's like a 20 minutes montage of him like putting it all together in his head. And then it's
Yeah.
them catching the killer. And it's like,
It's just
and
lazy.
it only goes for like 20 minutes. And it's like, it's lazy.
Yeah.
One, and when they do catch the killer, it's a weird guy in blackface with like this really terrible brown makeup on his face.
Yeah.
Breaking into a woman's apartment and like trying to kill her, and then Kevin Kline's like and Alan Rickman like fighting this guy. They're both falling down the stairs,
Yeah.
and like this, it's not like nobody mentions the blackface. It's not ironic or a satire in nature. It's just that's what the killer decides to wear. It's really weird.
Yeah.
probably because it was a racist time, and he was like, if I wear blackface, no one
Yeah,
will
like,
catch me because I'm
is
actually white.
Yeah, is the inference that
Oh.
the serial killer wanted police to think that
he
he's
was
black?
black.
suspect.
Yeah, so he goes home,
And
washes
not
the
a
paint
suspect.
off, and he's
But they never,
scot-free.
no, but they
Wouldn't-
never mention the blackface at all in the movie.
Yeah,
There's never a
if
physical.
that was the case, that should have come up. Like
there's
the-
never, that should have been part of the police work. But there's never a physical description of the killer.
yeah,
You never know anything about the
yeah.
killer until you see him, and then he's in some weird racist blackface, and it's never brought up.
maybe there's a lot of deleted scenes. I don't know.
Maybe there's a lot of deleted scenes, or
Maybe the people were just stupid who wrote it.
maybe it was just weird. Like the movie's not very
Yeah.
good anyway.
I mean, yeah,
But it's strange. Like why would they? It had such a stacked cast. Why wouldn't they make such a weird
I
decision?
don't know. Maybe they thought you never know when you're making a movie. If you think, oh, this is going to be amazing, and that comes out, and they're like, what did they do to it?
Yeah, I know.
how
That's
did they-
also
yeah.
true. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh well, it makes sense
yeah.
why it's not a bigger movie.
Yeah, so don't see January, man.
Yeah.
Don't see January
We've already
Man,
given
guys.
away
It's
the
not.
ending.
It's on Stan
it's-
if you absolutely have to watch it, but please don't.
Yeah. No, because there's no point.
Yeah,
otherwise.
there's no point. I've also finished season 2 of Goliath on Amazon Prime.
Oh yeah, you said that was good.
That was good. I didn't like the ending. I'm not going to spoil it, but they
Has it been renewed?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Like all things at the moment, even if it was
Unsure, yeah.
renewed, it's like
Yeah, things are
with COVID,
yeah.
and you never know at the moment. So right now there's 3 seasons. I've seen season 1, which I loved.
Oh, there's 3, so
Yeah.
you're halfway. Okay.
I've seen season 1, which I loved. Callum also loved it.
Yeah.
Season 2 was good. It's a lawyer. It's a lawyer drama, right?
Light legal thriller.
It's like a legal thriller show. Each season covers a case.
Okay.
And season 1 was amazing. Season 2, over half of it is good, like the first season, and the ending
Not so good.
messes up.
Yeah.
I didn't like the ending. That's okay. Like, it didn't have a resolution. It didn't really have a resolution, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It sort of just fizzled.
Mm.
And then it's like, well, there's nothing we can do now. And it's like, okay, I guess case closed.
Yeah.
But it's a legal thriller. Like,
Yeah.
I know that
Is it-
I know the writers are like, well, like this is, you don't win every case, but
Trying to be a subversion,
is
but
it trying
yeah.
to subvert
Yeah,
sort of
I-
like the
I
legal
think so.
thriller?
Well, when
thing?
you think of legal movies, generally
It ends with the big-
arc is
yeah.
lawyer, either washed out lawyer or famous lawyer
Yeah.
picks up a case they
Yeah.
wouldn't normally
No.
take. They
Um,
find some crucial piece of evidence which
Yeah.
someone overlooked
Give a
or
big speech.
whatever. Yeah, give
Yeah.
the big speech, and then he wins over the jury
Yeah.
or loses the big case, and then you have like the conclusive ending.
Yeah.
And I guess if you're just going to let it fizzle
Yeah,
out, that
it-
might be seen as a subversion, like
No,
sometimes things just happen, fall
That-
through the
yeah.
cracks
Sometimes
kind of
you don't
ending.
win. Yeah, you don't win all the time.
It's like it kind of got to the ending, and you're like, oh, well, this is going to be like the last episode is going to be like the big the court case,
Yeah.
the big
Yeah.
sort of the legal thing, which is going to like I like that kind of legal
Lawyer
courtroom
versus
drama.
lawyer.
Yeah, lawyer
Yeah,
versus lawyer, battle of the minds, obscure laws in the textbook. They have to
Yeah,
go
that's
digging
another
somewhere.
classic trope, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Like I love all those tropes.
Yeah.
And then I'm expecting it for the final episode, and it didn't pan out, and I was very disappointed, to be honest.
Hmm.
Season
Yeah.
3 looks like a return to form so far. I'm
Yeah.
a little bit in. I'm liking it.
I guess.
And season 3 got good reviews as well.
Yeah.
But I wasn't happy
guess
overall with season 2.
Maybe
I
it was
mean-
just a sophomore slump, isn't that?
Probably.
Isn't
Yeah. Probably
maybe.
that. But yeah, it's because like the whole like you can't win all the time, and it's a sad ending. That's not a bad thing. That could actually be interesting. But it sounds like they didn't really do it.
No, they
well.
didn't. It would have been different if he'd lost a court case. You know what I mean? If they
Yeah.
went through the avenues and it was like, sorry, you're out of luck this time.
Yeah.
That would have been fine, right? Because he would have had a resolution to the case.
Yeah.
It just didn't happen.
Especially if
It's-
especially if it was framed in such a way as they're right, but
Yeah,
for
well,
whatever
that's-
circumstance, some
that's what it
evidence
is.
gets destroyed and they can no longer sufficiently win the case, and
Like-
then you've
Yeah.
got that
Yeah.
added frustration and drama.
Yeah. Yeah.
Billy Bob is the hero.
Yeah.
And he goes through all these trials and tribulations to get where he needs to go and like to serve his client and, justice, all that kind of stuff. And then it's kind of just as like, nah, it's all right. We'll let this one go. But it's like, so I've spent 10 hours
Yeah.
of my life watching this case unfold only for Billy, like for it to fizzle and go nowhere at the end.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's not a waste of time. There's still good character development and
Yeah.
character stuff, but it's like, what's the point?
Well, yeah. I mean, I haven't started watching it, but maybe watch season 3, and then we'll talk about if it's worth continuing on with the
yeah,
show.
definitely.
In another episode.
Yeah. I don't know if I mentioned it last week. I watched Time to Kill.
Yeah, you didn't mention it on the show. You mentioned it to me. Though,
I also recently watched A Time to Kill in my legal binges,
Yeah. It's a
which
good
I
one.
thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah,
and
Matthew
they're doing a follow up on HBO.
Follow up as in a sequel.
Yeah, sequel.
With
So A
original
View to Kill is
cast?
So The View to Kill is the first book in the series.
Yeah.
They're skipping the second book, for whatever reason, maybe it just didn't
Yeah.
suit the format of TV.
Yeah.
And they're adapting the third book, and Matthew McConaughey's returning.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That could be good.
Yeah, I think
Could be
it's something
terrible.
called something.
Probably will be terrible. But
It's
could be
called
good.
something cheesy like A Time for Mercy,
Oh yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Sounds
Sounds like a series of book names where they're all like the same but slightly different. Yeah.
yeah. But I like the movie. I
Yeah.
think it was good. A tale of
It's
Like-
unfortunately still very relevant.
especially with what's going on
Yeah.
in the news today.
Yeah.
like, you know, when is vengeance right is basically the movie's premise. You know,
Yeah.
when is it okay to take matters into your own hands if the court system or the law doesn't serve you?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think so. Definitely watch it then.
It's a very good movie,
it's- yeah.
and especially today, I think it's very
There's
relevant.
there's a racial element.
I think
Yeah.
I think the last legal drama movie I watched was probably Richard Jewell, which
I actually like that.
I enjoyed it too. He made me uncomfortable because I'm like just the way he is, but that's a good thing in the sense that the character is definitely authentic.
Yeah.
It's not like a ham-fisted performance. It's definitely
it's like he's a guy who you're like, oh, he's, you know, South
'Cause,
Southern
you know,
conservative religious.
yeah,
You're
you
like,
watch
I shouldn't be rooting for this guy.
You watch Mindhunter and they're like, here's all the traits for a serial killer or a terrorist.
Oh
and,
yeah, yeah.
and I'm ticking them off in my head. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, you know, maybe he did do it,
yeah,
and no, he didn't.
yeah. No, yeah, I actually like that. Clint Eastwood, he all he does now is make those kind of boring, paint by the numbers biopics.
Yeah,
And I watched Richard Jewell, and I actually really enjoyed it.
it's a good. It's a good one.
It's a
Yeah.
good movie.
I think that's all I've got for now.
All right, well,
What have you been watching?
Well, here's the thing. Like last week, I was like, what should I talk about? There's some movies that I've been watching, but I'm like, they're not really fun to talk about in the show. You guys don't really care about what Fellini movie I've been watching. It doesn't really matter.
Tell us about the Fellini
But,
movie.
yeah, that's
what
what-
have you been watching?
That's what I was gonna say, right? So my, cause I have my, you know, like I talked about, I think on one of our lockdown pandemic episodes, where I was just like, I don't really like when we just do like talk about 5 minutes about a video game and 5 minutes about a movie. You don't really get to discuss it. And so I was like, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know. You know, I watch all these old movies. You know, it's like no one really cares. But you know, since we're doing this kind of format, I'm like, you know, maybe. But then I was like, So, but I'm collecting because I'm like kind of curating my Blu-ray collection.
Right.
So
Good luck.
yeah. So basically, I haven't counted, but I'm guessing I have around 3,000 Blu-rays, give or take. And so I've stopped watching stuff on streaming, unless it's like an original or
like
you know,
one of
like
the
a
important
show
shows.
that-
Yeah.
And I try to watch as many Blu-rays as I can, as many movies as I can. And what I've been doing is instead of just like getting into a mood and watching a whole bunch of the same kind of genre or whatever, I tried to pick a movie because there's so many movies, I'm never going to get through them and I'm so busy. What I try to do is every time I watch a movie, I try to watch a movie from a different decade. So if I watch a movie from the 80s, then the next time I watch a movie, I don't watch a movie from the 80s. I pick another decade.
Smart.
And then so let's say I watch one from the 60s, then the next time I watch a movie, I don't pick a movie from the 80s or the 60s. Pick another, and then eventually I'll loop back after a while. And so I thought, instead of me trying to scroll through, you know, because I write down all the movies I watch,
Yeah.
because I watch so many, and sometimes it's hard to remember. Instead of me scrolling through and trying to come up with something fun to talk about on the show, you know, engaging, you guys pick a decade, and
okay.
I will choose what the last movie
Alright,
from that decade that I watched.
Let's start with
and
the
it's your fault if it's boring.
Let's
and
start
you-
with the 90s.
Oh, that's an easy one.
Start with the 90s.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna go to the 50s.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. So 90s. Okay, where's can't even read my notes now. Oh my god. Okay, so I watched. Okay, that's not even a good. Okay, Good Burger.
Good Burger.
Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, so
Never seen it, but I know it.
yeah, so in context, in the 90s, Keenan and Kel were two like comedian kind of young guys. They were teenagers. They had this show, Keenan and Kel, on Nickelodeon. It was like a kids show,
Yeah.
like a sitcom.
Pretty famous. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were two, you know, teenagers, you know, getting into trouble. And they were really big at the time. And they had a movie which came out in 1997 called Good Burger, which is like a comedy about a high school student who crashes his car at the start of the summer holidays, summer vacation, I should say. Crashes his car into one of his teacher's cars, and he has to pay back the teacher
Yeah.
To get his car repaired by getting a summer job, which ruins obviously his plans to just chill out.
Yeah.
And he gets a job at Good Burger, which is like a little
Franchise.
franchise, like a little burger place. And he befriends one of the cashiers named Ed. So Keenan plays the kid who crashes the car, and then Kel plays Ed, who's like this kind of so Kel has this character he's made called Ed, who is like a surfer dude with like dreadlocks, and like he speaks like this dude, and
classic,
yeah, I think it's
classic
hilarious.
80s 90s Bill and Ted,
sort of like that. And then they get into all sorts of hijinks, and then there's this big it's called Mondo Burger. It's like a big franchise, like McDonald's, Burger King kind of thing that's going to take over. And they have to save Good Burger from going out of business. And it's a really dumb, silly, mid to late 90s kind of kids, kind of dumb comedy.
Yeah.
But I love it. I think it's amazing. And I love all the jokes, and I quote it all the time. And our friend Julian, he's obsessed with it too. So every time I see him, we're just quoting the movie back and forth at each other. And no one else I know has ever seen it. I don't think people, especially in Australia, I don't think people even remember Kenan and Kel that much.
I saw the case in Blockbuster one time.
Yeah.
And I just passed through it.
Yeah. But anyway, so what happened is they released it on Blu-ray for the first time.
Okay.
And so I imported that real quick. And I watched it, and it looks really nice. Now, this is not a movie that I would say has good cinematography.
Was it restored or like what did they do to it?
No, it looked really good. Unfortunately, it didn't really have many special features, just a couple.
Understandable.
It looked really nice. And, it was a 90s movie, so it's shot on film. So even though it kind of looks dodgy because it's, 90s comedy, it's a Nickelodeon spin-off movie, so it's going to look a certain way. It just looked nice.
It's film. It's going to look decent if you clean it up properly.
Yeah. And it's just a funny movie that it's really silly and...
Well, it's like I haven't seen it in years, but I really enjoyed, and it's not the same. It's a bit more adult in nature. Yeah. But Dude, Where's My Car?
It's kind of like that. It's a bit less racy or, a bit less crude.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of vein. There was like a bunch of 90s comedies that I really love. That some of them might not have aged really well. Some of them have. But it's just like, whether it's nostalgia or not, like even now when I'm older.
It's a certain moment in time.
Yeah. Like Mighty Ducks is one.
Yeah. They're kind of off topic. It's like in the theme of the 90s. What year did the Flintstones movie come out in?
94, 95, 96.
Because that has way more adult humor.
I really like that movie.
That has way more adult humor than I remember having.
So no joke, I really, really like the Flintstones live action movie.
I haven't seen it in years.
Is it on streaming?
It might be.
I saw
really good.
I saw a compilation of scenes, and it's way more adult than I remember it being.
Yeah.
Like all the things that fly over your head as a kid.
Oh yeah, it's got so many great.
That scene with Halle Berry and the desk. I was like,
yeah. And Cole McLaughlin's in it.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
The cast is amazing. Oh man, I really like that movie. Like if you're gonna make a live action movie based on a cartoon,
that's how you do it.
And yeah, and so they make things look cartoonish, but it's all practical.
Yeah.
So all the houses and like the cars with the with the feet where they use their feet and all that stuff, it's like it's all practically made, but they make it look cartoonish. So it all kind of looks rubbery and fake, but it's all real.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
I started watching the Mighty Ducks the new TV show on Disney Plus. Because
you were braver than I.
It gets good reviews, all right. So far, it's not terrible. They're trying to do that Cobra Kai-esque thing, but have it maybe not quite as edgy. And
nostalgia is basically a currency in its own.
Yeah,
right
and we, those of us who haven't watched the Mighty Ducks as children, cast the first
haven't
stone.
you?
No, we have.
Oh, okay.
Those of us who haven't cast the first stone.
Yeah.
But so far it's not too bad. It's got some of that quirky humor, but it's no Cobra Kai.
Yeah, I just because I love Mighty Ducks, the original trilogy, And I saw the trailer for what's it called? Mighty Ducks Legacy Champions Revisited.
I don't know.
Rebooted.
Alphabet Soup,
Yeah. Anyway, and we were just like, yeah, this is just they're cashing on the Cobra Kai nostalgia kind of thing. But I was like, that's not such a bad thing. But the trailer just looked like early 2000s, like Disney Channel, straight to TV movie.
It put me off a little bit.
Yeah,
Look,
I was like,
I'm halfway through the first episode. I didn't have a lot. I was exhausted after work. I didn't have a lot of time.
Does it look nice?
It looks. It's Disney, so it's got the budget. It's got the Dolby Vision. And it's like the sort of the budget is quite high.
Yeah.
So it looks nice.
Mm.
Like I haven't seen the whole episode yet. I'm still early days, but I'm liking what I'm seeing so far.
Okay.
But I won't talk about it too much until I've seen it.
Yeah.
Because there's no point discussing it now.
Yeah.
When I'm like 20 minutes in.
Yeah. But I mean,
would recommend Good Burger.
10 out of 10 good burger. But it's like not. Yeah. Look, no one I know seen it, and like I can't really recommend it and say watch this movie. It's great because it's a very specific kind of movie,
cultural moment,
with a very specific. From a very specific time with a very specific kind of humor that I just happen to like. Yeah.
So the 50s.
All right, 50s. Let's see what I got here. All right, you got two options here. We can talk about Fellini or we can talk about Japanese sci-fi movies.
You know what? I'm going to say Japanese sci-fi movies because there was something I was going to mention after which is related. So we'll segue right in, James.
Cool. All right, so the last movie I watched from the 50s was called The H-Man.
Okay. And what does the H stand for?
From 1958. So basically, it was directed by Ishiro Honda, who directed Godzilla
and makes good cars.
No, different Honda. And I think I've talked about on this show before. I love Godzilla, especially the Japanese Godzilla. Huge fan. And Ishiro Honda made a lot of these kind of monster movies. Several Godzilla movies and then other spin-off or unrelated monster movies, kaiju movies. Yeah. Which I all love. I love that specific subgenre of Japanese, guys in rubber suits
sci-fi
crushing
movies,
models. Yeah. That's why I love Power Rangers, I love that kind of whole thing. Anyway, he made this movie in 1958 called The H-Man, which is similar to Godzilla except with no giant monsters. But a similar themes of like the whole coming of the atomic age and the effect it had on Japan, obviously with the bombs. Yeah. And so anyway, basically the movie follows a drug deal gone wrong, quote unquote, where the suspect is being chased by the police and he just literally disappears into thin air. Oh, cool. And all that's left is his clothes, completely untouched, and there's no evidence of where he's gone. And so it's basically like the cops trying to figure out where this guy is, who he's been dealing with, his accomplices, his girlfriend, who's like a nightclub singer. And there's these cool kind of Technicolor, Japanese nightclub scenes where they're playing jazz. And it's really cool. That
sounds cool, yeah.
Yeah. And basically there's like an investigation and they're trying to find out. And as they go along, they meet this professor, a young professor, who's been doing research into like atomic radiation or whatever. And he's like, I think I know what caused these people. There's more than one person has disappeared at this point, and all they've found is their clothes. He's like, I think I know what's caused this. It's like some sort of radiation poisoning, and they're dissolved. Like the people are literally dissolving. And of course the police just laugh at this guy. But of course he turns out to be right. Yeah. And so the movie goes on and it's like, why are these people disappearing? And it's because of the atomic bomb testing, and the radiation has got its way to Tokyo and has infected certain people.
Into the cells and stuff.
And has turned them into the H-Man, which is like this big green humanoid kind of blob guy. Oh, no. And if the blob guy touches you, you dissolve.
Oh, of course.
And there's these really cool... special effects of like people melting. It's like they actually made like a life-size rubber person, quote unquote, put clothes and a wig on it and then melted it. And so it's really great effects that I don't think you'd get away with in an American movie at the same time because it's too quote unquote gruesome.
It sounds very, we'll say forward thinking for the time.
Well,
in terms of its writing and special effects and
some of the special effects obviously haven't aged very well, especially where they draw on the effects onto the cell, like that Callum likes, the kind of cartoonish looking. That stuff hasn't aged, but some of the practical effects where someone's melting and it's like you can see the person, especially where the way they light it, sometimes it's like dark shadow and you just see a guy kind of folding into his clothes and melting into the floor. It's really, really cool. So there's some really, really cool, and some scenes that are a lot gorier than you'd find in a lot of American or British movies from the 50s.
Yeah.
But it basically follows the same themes of something like Godzilla or other Japanese movies from the time of like, you got to be careful of what you do with
science,
nuclear power and
weapons.
Because at the end of the movie, he's like, there's the professor, and it's the same as the ending of the original Godzilla, where he's like, if you're not careful, there will be more H-Man. There will be more H-Men in the future. So, they defeat
an army of H-Men.
Yeah, exactly.
they all face the camera, and it's like the edutainment section of the movie.
They defeat the H-Man at the end, and then there's, the credits, and then the professor says, if you're not careful, this will happen again, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which
and everyone goes, and then
nothing changes.
And this was on Blu-ray?
Yes, I got this Eureka, the British film restoration Blu-ray releasing label. They released a double feature of 2 Ashiro Honda movies, The H-Man and Battle for Outer Space. I watched H-Man. I haven't watched Battle for Outer Space yet.
Oh, sounds good.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, like I said, I love these movies, and when they restore them this way, so nice.
Well, it's interesting because I think that we're kind of going through a cultural Japan resurgence, if you know what I mean. Like they're bringing not Congo, like Godzilla's coming back into the big screen again. And that's been going for a few movies now.
Yeah.
But they're also they're making a new Tron film, aren't they, at some point? Which is kind of like cyberpunky. No, but it's very cyberpunky kind of related. But Netflix today, I saw an article. Netflix is making a Gundam movie. So it's, and like the whole
action.
the whole kaiju and Gundam mecha stuff is kind of seems to be coming back.
Yeah, I mean that kind of
even in video games, there seems to be like there's more of that kind of stuff in video games as well now.
I mean, like Godzilla and giant monsters has always been a thing, but Japan, like I said, Japan is the epicenter.
Yeah, in the West, we don't get quite as much.
And in the West, we get the kind of knockoff versions, which are never usually as good. And like, this is one of the reasons I don't like the American Godzilla movies, because they kind of miss the point and they use too much CGI, and then they're not as fun or well done. But yeah, there's still a lot of popularity for that thing. Like Pacific Rim, people really like that movie, and
that's kind of what I was mean. Like it's been going for a little while now.
Yeah.
The next Suicide Squad movie has what's his name, the Starro or something, or
who?
The bad guy in the new Suicide Squad movie is a kaiju. They call him a kaiju in the movie, but it's Starro the Destroyer or something.
Oh, okay.
It's like a giant alien.
I don't like that they've done that. I mean, we'll see when the movie comes out.
So even the superhero movies are getting in on that sort of kaiju action now, where like the bad guy is like,
well, the bad guy,
hundreds of meters tall.
That's like calling Galacticus a kaiju. I mean, come on.
No, but he's not. He's not a man. Like the bad guy's not a man.
No, I know what you mean. I just think it's interesting. I think it'll be good if it is, because last time we had this.
No, I was just going to say, you're getting back to Gundam, right?
Well, I was going to say, last time we had like the big cultural export from Japan.
Yeah.
We ended up with a whole bunch of good quality media out of that. You know what I mean? Like the way it had an impact. So, I mean, it's not going to have the same impact as the original 80s impact that Japan did on the West.
Yeah.
But it'd be cool. Like the science fiction output from Japan is in some aspects so much cooler than the West.
We've talked about anime quite a few times.
Yeah.
Probably we even talked about it last week. But like, Evangelion, very popular.
Yeah.
Had a very, very huge influence on Pacific Rim with the giant robots and stuff. And that just adds to the whole, thing we've been talking about, where it's like now it's coming across to America and stuff.
Yeah.
But in terms of a live action Gundam thing on Netflix. I mean, that's big.
Made by the
But-
Godzilla people too.
The American Godzilla people, or the
No,
Japanese
the American. I
Godzilla
believe
people?
the American. I'll double check
okay.
for you real quick.
But anyway, what I'm getting at is if it's not going to be good. I'm sorry to say.
It's the guy who made the Kong Skull Island. It's
it'll be-
Jordan Vogt
Oh,
Roberts.
Yeah.
no, but Kong Skull
Skull Island's
Island by
fine.
itself was decent.
It was fine. But yeah, like I think it's not just a problem with the CGI and the special effects, which is a problem. It's just they don't know how to make these movies.
Yeah, look, I mean, if Nolan was going to make it, he'd make a Gundam.
Exactly.
He'd blow up real kaiju.
This is the thing, though, right? If you made it like they did back in the day with guys in suits, no one would take it seriously. People would say it looks cheap. It wouldn't do very well. Even though personally I love that. If you make it with the crappy CGI like they've been doing with the new Godzilla movies and Pacific Rim and that, people love it. They think it's great. Even though I find that quite boring and
it's
very
a difficult
flat,
thing, isn't it?
right? And this is why I really, really love Shin Godzilla, which came out in 2016, I believe, which was the first Japanese Godzilla movie in quite a while, and came out after the 2014 American one, which I didn't like at all. And Shin Godzilla really, really kind of demonstrated why the Japanese get it, and why it was directed by the guy who created Evangelion. It's a live action movie. And it demonstrated why the Japanese get it, and why Godzilla only works in Japan, or only works when made by a Japanese.
So,
Now, I'm not saying Americans can't make kaiju movies or can't make Godzilla movies, but from the last few outputs, they don't seem to get it.
so with Shin
So-
Godzilla, did they use CG or did they use
that's
like
what
a
I-
mixture, or
that's
was
what
it
I
a man in a
That's
suit?
what I was getting at, is they did it CGI, but they did it in such a way where it was like, it almost looked like a guy in a suit, the way it moved and the way it interacted with the buildings and stuff, but not all the way to be rubbery and silly and him stamping and stuff. And so it was like that perfect kind of blend of like, we're going to pay homage to the original guy in the suit and the model work and stuff, but we're going to do it with modern special effects and CGI.
Finer control.
Yeah. And and also in doing that, you shoot it in such a way where it does have an old school feeling.
Yeah.
Because we always complain, things now, they're too dark, too much shaky cam, too much CGI flying across, you don't know what's going on. If you kind of use CGI but rein it back a bit and kind of shoot it in such a way where you'd shoot something practically, it gives you a different feel, an old school kind of feel,
So we're always whinging about.
Yeah, so if they made a Gundam movie, obviously they're going to use CGI. They're not going to use a guy in a suit.
That'd be weird.
Yeah, right, but...
Or amazing.
But if they shot it in a way where it was like, this could be a guy in a suit, but it looks brand spanking new because it's CGI. Like, I'm not articulating myself very well.
No, I
but
understand what you're saying. They could pull it off.
It takes a very specific...
Godzilla's
view
more
and
about
director.
how he moves and how the world interacts with Godzilla. It doesn't.
Oh,
CG is not necessarily
also-
a bad thing.
Also, can we talk about how in anime movies, like Gundam especially, like, the robots move very quickly because it's an animated show and they're supposed to be impressive. Yeah, they're huge giant machines, but
They're also very agile. Yeah.
they're supposed to be agile, like state of the art machines. Whereas when you make a live action movie, whether you use CGI or a guy in a suit, they have to make it slow because it's so big that you're like, well, if this is big, obviously it's not going to be moving fast. If it moves fast, that doesn't make sense because it's so big. There's no way it could be moving that fast. And so you lose something in the translation from anime to live action, like you do with all anime to live action.
Yeah.
But it's like Gundam, it's like, it would be cool to see them try and do things a bit faster.
Well, I was thinking about this when I read the article. I'm like, what are they going to make the weapons look like? So in anime, right,
Yeah.
you get the laser bursts, and they have this.
Yeah.
Swords.
They have this cool like
So-
effect of like almost the weapon being primed first, and then it
Yeah.
blows out. Like, are they gonna? It'll
Guns-
probably in the movie. It'll probably just be like a
Exactly.
like a laser bam,
Guns, yeah,
and then the
Guns-
swords, like the cool choreography in anime.
exactly.
It'll be a lot harder to replicate because they're not as agile.
Guns in anime are super detailed and super important and like a huge part of anime. And there's always, especially with these giant not just like even in normal anime, where it's just a guy with a revolver. It's like they're like, this is this specific type of revolver, and he shoots it with this kind of ammunition. It's a very anime Japanese thing. I don't know. And in giant robot movies, it's like the guns are very much a part of
the machine. Yeah.
It's like in something like Pacific Rim or another American movie, like that, because it's a big mech, like it would just have the guns on it, you know?
Yeah, like
But-
right on the back.
Yeah.
Or,
But a big part of the Japanese big giant robot thing is like they have, sometimes they have guns that come off them like Iron Man, but it's like they also have like a big laser rifle. That's just
what I was thinking of. Yeah.
the size of
the
a
gun,
building.
like
you know?
proportionally, it's proportionally as large as it needs to be. Yeah.
And sometimes
And the sword across
and
the
sometimes
back.
they have to reload it with giant ammunition, and it's ridiculous, right? But that's part of the fun, you know. Like
Yeah.
we were talking about at the start of the show with like arming up montages or whatever. It's like that's part of the fun, the detail of it. You know, with war games, it's like the detail of hacking in. It's like that's why people like anime. That's one of the reasons people like anime, and it's hard to translate to live action.
It's certainly risky.
without it being silly and cringy, right?
Yeah.
So if you could make a Gundam movie where it's like they have big laser guns and it
Like
kinda,
it gets me a little excited, but it also gets me a little worried. You know
No,
what I mean? Like it's
that-
that middle.
yeah.
I'm like, oh,
if they could pull it off, it would be amazing. But you know it's gonna be Pacific Rim.
Yeah. It'd have to
again,
be.
like you know, like
It'd be a Pacific Rim in space.
yeah,
But
pretty much.
how do they like? They
That's
can't
the
have
other
it too.
point because Gundam takes place mostly in space instead of giant robots
Yeah.
walking on
And,
land.
like-
it's they fly around.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and one of the
they
cool
can move a
things-
bit quicker.
Exactly,
one of the
and
cool
also they have
things-
laser swords, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's what I was like. Yeah, like I want to see that kind of stuff, but I don't want it to be some of the awful CGI we see. Like I
Yeah.
want the laser sword to look like classic.
I want.
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
One thing,
But then again, right? If it's in space, you can play with perspective a bit more. So you can have it. You can have these. You can have scenes where the robots are a bit smaller, and you can have the cool laser swords. Everything can be practical.
yeah.
And then when you need something for scale, you
For
can
s-
have
yeah.
a bigger
Yeah.
like.
But
So
also, like
th-
even the little minutia things, like the little ships that are also in
Yeah.
battle around them.
I just
Like
you know,
I
it's-
hope they use models or miniatures
they won't.
instead of like CGI
I think
ships flying
we-
around, and they're all like a
we talk-
brown shade.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago with like how they just don't take the time and the care
Yeah.
anymore. And we talked about how when something's far away or moving quickly or whatever, yeah, use CGI. Obviously, you can't. But if you do a close up of something, use a model or practical. And obviously, if they do a close up of the robot, they're not going to use a model. But it would be cool because there are going to be scenes obviously in the control room of the Gundam, the pilot, you know.
Hopefully it'll be practical.
And there's assumedly going to be in scenes where they get in the robot.
Look, if
the more
Stanley
practical
Kubrick can do it in the 60s for
2001,
2001 with
Yeah.
that sort of thing where you see like
Yeah.
a live action inside a window in a model.
Yeah,
like
but what I'm talking about is like in the inevitable scene of like them running down to get into the thing
Yeah.
and like going and sitting in the pilot's seat. It's mostly going to be green screen CGI with a couple of practical elements.
Yeah.
They should try to do as much practical as possible.
especially
won't,
it's
but-
going to disappoint us, but especially
Yeah,
as
it's
I
not gonna
mentioned
be
a
good.
second ago, it's in space, right?
Yeah.
You can play with perspective and having a practical robot and having a CG robot because it's not set on Earth in a city where you have to worry about
Yeah, at least not all the time.
a city looking
yeah,
fake.
There'll
and-
definitely be parts of where they land in the city.
no,
and
but
crash
you know what I
things,
mean?
yeah.
Like they have the ability in
Yeah.
a vacuum of space to be like, well, size is
And
what
they
we
don't-
want it
yeah,
to be.
and they don't have to worry about so many backgrounds. And,
Yeah, exactly.
Them landing on things. It's just, they can just fly around, and it doesn't really matter if they look kind of floaty because they're floating in space.
Exactly.
Whereas
There's
if
less
they were in Earth
Yeah.
atmosphere and they started floating around, smashing things, it would look crap.
There's more potential for them to get it right if it's in space
Yeah.
than if it's on Earth, basically.
Yeah.
In terms of making it look realistic and using practical effects.
Yeah.
But they'll stuff it up because
Yeah.
they always do.
Fingers crossed, but it's not going to be good.
Anyone else
Yeah.
have anything before
No.
we round it out this week?
I think we're all done.
Yeah, I think it was pretty good.
That's it.
All right.
Yeah, I didn't bore everyone to tears.
No, it was a good discussion about
Okay,
Japanese robots
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robot.
and science fiction,
Yeah.
robots. Thank you for listening, everybody. Please like
Oh.
and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page.
R.I.P. DMX.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
rest in peace,
All
DMX.
dogs go to heaven. Arr, arr.
Yeah, X will give it to you
Yeah.
in heaven now.
Heaven. Rough Riders
Yeah.
in the sky.
Thank you for listening. Please listen to the show on Shout Engine, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen.
Rate, review, and subscribe.
Rate, review, and
It does
subscribe.
things.
Ring the bell.
Yeah, ring that bell.
We don't have a YouTube page.
Smash that like button.
Smash the like button. We'll be back next week. Thank you for listening. Adios, cousins.